Okay, this is the dust deputy that I just finished attaching to the bucket and a cart and then the various fittings in order to accommodate its use with two different vacuums that are interchangeable on the same cart. That was my goal. It was a little difficult to know how to attach it and get it set up. This is a Fein Vacuum back here, the smaller of the two Fein Vacuums. It comes with 1 1.25 inch hose, vacuum hose. This rigid vacuum comes with 1 7/8 inch hose. And so I wanted to be able to use either of those on the same cart. So this is what I ended up doing, and I thought I might just show you in case others are thinking about doing the same and aren't quite sure how to set it up with the fittings. The PVC, and let me grab the camera and come in closer so you can see. I used PVC fittings here. This is 1.5 inch to 2 inch reducer here, and then from here on down it's glued, but this is just pressed on so it can be taken off to take the lid off and empty the sawdust or whatever out of here. This hose happens to be, this was sold by Ace Hardware, and it's actually a hose that they sell by the foot that was marketed for use in hot tubs, I believe. But it happened to fit up inside one of these 1.5 inch fittings, and I used underneath this duct tape is a silicone sealant, and so I was able to seal it in there, and I think it'll work pretty well. And then on this end, it's one of those screw-on ends from a rigid hose vacuum line. The ends, screw onto the spiral outside of these vacuum hoses. This hose happened to be approximately the same size, and so I also siliconed it and then taped it. And instead of buying another whole section of this rigid hose, I was able to buy a couple feet of this from Ace Hardware, and that's what I'm using to attach both vacuums to the dust deputy. This fitting here is 2.25 inches, and it fits inside this rigid vacuum just fine. Now, if I want to switch over to the Fein Vacuum instead of the rigid, let me show you how I ended up doing that. I have to put this back on the tripod. And I need both hands. So hang on just a minute. Let me. Okay, what I do, you just unhook it from the rigid, and this lifts out. As you can see, I made cutouts here for the casters, and these holes accommodate the casters on either of these vacuums. So the Fein, now the bottom of the Fein has a extension here on the bottom, and so that's why I needed that hole there in the center. And so it's a little awkward, but I decided just to fit these casters down inside. So let's see if I can get it here. And it just sets in, and this same 2.25 inch hose end does fit inside the Fein as well, and so the Fein fits up in the same setup as the rigid, and so I can switch between these two vacuums. But what I want to do, I haven't even tested it yet, So what I want to do, I don't have a filter inside the Fein right now, so let me take it off, and I'm going to put the rigid vacuum back in here. Now once it's set in here, you know, it just sets in fine. So let me get this set up, and I'm going to draw in on that, and we're going to test and see how this thing works. Okay, now I'll show you how it works. I've got a pan of sawdust here, so let me turn it on and vacuum that, and you'll see it cyclone inside there, hopefully, if everything's working okay. So here we go. Okay, so hopefully you could see how that works, but let's check and see how it did. Now on this particular setup, what I do is I can just take this. I can just take the here. Let me back this back out. Okay, I can just undo this top part here. And then the way I held the lid on is just with these bungee cords, and so I can just take these off. Of course, holding the camera and doing it always a little awkward, but. All right, now this just lifts off, and I'll show you underneath here. What I did is I routed out and then put a foam seal there, and made this wooden lid for it. And so everything just drops down in the bucket, as you can see down there, and hopefully it keeps the vacuum from filling up. So let's check inside this vacuum, if I can get it off with just one hand. Let's see if I can do that. And see, as you can tell, nothing came into the vacuum at all. And so that's the purpose, to keep the vacuum and the vacuum filter clean so your suction remains strong, and all of the stuff that you're vacuuming falls into the bucket instead of into the vacuum. So it looks like it's working, and that's good. What I did is, one final thing, this bucket sits inside of the white bucket. Might not be able to, you know, it's just sitting in there, but it's pretty tight. You need two hands. And then this bucket is just attached to the wooden rolling cart here, and I just used a couple screws to attach this permanently down to here. But this bucket pulls up out, and you can empty it when it gets full. So that's the way that I've set up this Dust Deputy to work, and I haven't really used it. I just got it set up. But it's set up to work with two different vacuums and on the same cart, and I can switch between them. I thought I'd also mention that on the utility end of the Dust Deputy, I use this rigid product. Let me just show you. It's an upgrade from the hose that came with the vacuum. They call it a 4-time Pro hose, but it's an 1 7/8 hose. This orange hose here, it's a little longer and it's a lot better quality than the hose that came with the vacuum. What I like about it is these two different ends. This is the end that there's various attachments that go on it. You know, the end that you actually use. I've got an attachment on it right now that accommodates a normal vacuum extension tube. But this end, I'm going to take this off. So this is the normal working end, and this is the 2 1/4 inch end that actually is meant to fit inside the vacuum, but it slides on over top of the dust deputy there, and it's 2 1/4 inch. So I can use this, for example, if I'm going to hook up the table saw accommodates this size, and if I were going to use a table saw, I'd put that end in there. And then this smaller end actually fits inside of the dust deputy, and so I can use either end of this hose on the dust deputy, and use the other end for whatever I'm wanting to do with it. So I just thought I'd mention that as well.